Welcome back after lunch. It's good to see you all again. We have another MP in the House, Stephen Browning from the Green MP. He's a Green MP, so if you'd like to contact him at some point during the stage, he's down the front and he'll be up here during the afternoon break. We've got a panel discussion now, and the first person on that panel is John Hartnell, and then we have Beth Masser and Dan Vink. So I'll leave it to each of those to introduce themselves. I've only got a very short amount of time, and then after that there will be a question panel. One housekeeping point, Rossborough Apiaries, I've had your credit card, used it, and now I've given it to registration desk, so if you can grab it, that'd be great. Thanks.
Welcome back, everybody, from lunch. I hope you enjoyed it. From what I can see and what I've tasted, the food's been outstanding over the last day and a half, and I'm sure it's going to continue, and I hope you're enjoying it. I'm very quickly just going to touch on land use agreements and talk about some of the factors that are being considered by people and why we need to do these. So I will just rip straight into it because we haven't got a lot of time. If I can make it work. Right click. No. Why is it not doing what it's meant to do? Oh, there you go. You're cleverer than me. Thank you. Right, I don't know. Okay, so just a few quick slides to set the discussion. So, expectations. What does the landowner believe and what does he expect? So I've got here, every box is full of honey money. Manuka is worth $300 per kilo. Honey prices are through the roof. I said, yes, they are good, but please take a zero off. The beekeepers have been ripping me off for years. Everybody produces Manuka. Some short-term memory frame from my perspective. Pollination benefits on farm should never be forgotten. They are very real and extremely important. And we need to remind our farming community of those benefits that we do bring to the farm. They're my trees and it's my nectar. Quite true. But there's no value unless it can be harvested. Why a formal agreement? Security for both and value for both the landowner and the beekeeper. Transparency builds trust, understanding and a working together attitude. Risk is shared. Beekeeping is a farming operation, but it's driven by unique drivers. And compliance issues and health and safety, etc., easy to address. So some key content information that's required in these agreements. Obviously there's an introduction, and I'll give you a bit of a flavour on that, of the parties that are to the agreement, the terms of those agreements, where those apiary locations are going to be, GPS coordinates, how the payment is to be determined. Is it going to be a profit share environment, or is it going to be a fixed rate per hive? The land use permission and hive placements, sites, access roads, and what the farmer has to do to contribute to that benefit of that, because under today's health and safety law, you can't just have a cruddy old farm track. There actually has to be reasonable access that people can safely move to and from that farm. As I said, health and safety obligations, they're joint. Beehive protection. You know, beekeepers don't like other people borrowing their hives, and we need to be sure that there is some protection on farm for that. In some instances, access to that farm may be on an exclusive basis, or it may be on a shared basis. Obviously, there's a requirement for good beekeeping and good husbandry, a cancellation and termination factor, some confidentiality, the right to renew, and good faith, and a few other bits and pieces. How the land use charge is calculated, be it a set rate, as I said before, or a percentage, and that should be determined within the agreement, and the basis for that calculation, and how that calculation is actually proved. How you're going to pay, what the payment arrangement will be, and of course an ability for both parties to be able to contact each other quite quickly. Obviously you're going to have a bank account if you're going to pay somebody, and last but not least, a good handshake. So, how do you get copies, and what have we been doing as APNZ? We've basically developed two land use agreements. They're not quite finalised yet, but they're based on two simple principles. One is based on a share of the reward and the risk In other words, that the landowner shares that. If it's a good season, he shares in a good season. If it's a bad season, he shares in the result accordingly. I think it's a far more equitable way to operate, but it's not going to satisfy everybody or suit everybody. Another instance is the fixed rental option, and you hear anything from $5 to $200. Every beekeeper needs to determine what he can afford to pay, obviously, and how that arrangement sits. We are working on those agreements. I have 2 of them in draft form here now, and we're just working through now with the legal team just to make sure that they're acceptable and we're not putting down something that's irresponsible or would lead to some serious challenge in a later time. So if this is something that you're looking for, and I know I've received a lot of inquiry already from this particular side of things, if this is what you'd like to, come and register your interest. They'll be available. There will be a cost, but nothing great to the membership of APNZ, and it'll be important that you do put these in place. The health and safety laws today really are important, and later on, I think tomorrow, I talk a little bit about health and safety and how we're bringing that particular subject to the table, because again, it's a responsibility of every beekeeper to make sure that they have a strong and robust health and safety program available. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you. If you have some questions, there'll be an opportunity to talk about that in a minute, and we'll pass on. We're on a time frame, so let's move along. So